All right, folks. You talk about a couple programs that have been expecting big things, but have been overhyped and over celebrated for like 20 or 25 years. One of them has to win a playoff game. So one of them's got to succeed. Neither has won a conference championship in over 20 years. Texas A&M in Miami on Saturday, of course, and the Buckeyes get the winner. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. Steve Hellwagon, of course, right next to me. Bucknuts 247 Sports is the destination where you can find all of Steve's work and a various number of media stops along the way, of course, throughout the week with Steve. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing good. What's going on, Mark?
I'm good. Texas A&M and Miami should be an interesting one, maybe the best matchup of the weekend. And, of course, the Buckeyes are scouting both. And
yeah, no doubt. You've got Alabama, Oklahoma on Friday night, and then the first game out of the box Saturday at 12 is probably the best game of the day with Miami, Florida visiting Texas A&M. I believe this is the first playoff berth for both these teams. Isn't that right?
Yes.
I can't recall either of them ever being in the playoff, and one of them is obviously going to advance to the quarterfinals and the Fiesta Bowl to play Ohio State on December the 31st at 8 o'clock. So plan your New Year's Eve accordingly. Got a family member, my wife's cousin. Her daughter is getting married on December the 31st down in Florida, but I can thankfully report that the wedding will be before the game starts, and then everybody can enjoy watching the game on their phones at the whatever they call those things, reception. That's the word I was struggling to find, but yeah, this game is going to attract a lot of attention from Ohio State fans on Saturday. Texas A&M at home, Kyle Field is a very difficult place for opposing teams to go in and win. And so we'll see if Texas A&M can hold serve there at home. They're a modest 3.5 point favorite over Miami. Texas A&M was 11-1 this year, but as I researched their schedule, of the 7 SEC teams that are ranked in the college football playoff top 20, of the other 6, obviously Texas A&M is one of them at number 7. Of the other 6, they only played one of them, and that was Texas. And they lost to them on the road at Texas 27-17. They got the luxury of not having to play Georgia, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Alabama, or Vanderbilt. So that worked out pretty good in their favor. Of course, looking at Ohio State, who are they to throw stones? They didn't have to play Indiana or Oregon during the regular season, at least. They had to play Indiana in the Big Ten championship game. So, it's going to be a really good game on Saturday. Two teams that really match up well. I think Texas A&M has the edge at home, and I think Texas A&M is both better establishing the run and stopping the run than Miami. So that may give them a little bit of a benefit. Their quarterback, Carson Beck, for Miami, he is a 3-year starter. He missed the playoff last year. As people will recall, he got injured by Texas in the SEC championship game, injured his arm, and missed Georgia's playoff game last year. But otherwise, you look at it, two pretty evenly matched teams.
Folks, check out on the main channel. I posted a video where I went through the common opponents for Miami and Texas A&M. I will do the same with Alabama and Oklahoma, although they obviously played each other, but you can gain some insight into the numbers. So they both played Florida, talking about Miami and Texas A&M. They both played Florida. They both played Notre Dame. Texas A&M escaped out of South Bend with a 1-point win, largely due to Notre Dame not being able to snap a PAT and hold it. Otherwise, that game would have gone to overtime. Marcel Reed had a decent game, not a great passing percentage, 17-37 against the Irish. But again, Texas A&M, that was their big marquee win of the year by far, going into South Bend, winning that game. as Steve mentions, if you look at the Texas A&M schedule, and this is another breakdown I did just to extend on your point, Steve, the record of Texas A&M's SEC opponents in the SEC is 18-46. The teams that they played in the SEC went 18-46. That was bolstered by Texas at 6-2. So that's the team they lost to. All the teams they defeated went 12-44.
Wow.
So they played the very bottom of the barrel. So Ohio State,
a lot of Arkansas.
A lot of Arkansas, a lot of Mississippi
LSU
State,
and Missouri and Mississippi State.
Those were the best teams they played. Missouri and LSU, the best teams that they beat. So yeah, the Buckeyes didn't play a gauntlet, but there was still more competition there. You know what's crazy though, if I'm getting this straight, and I went to the ESPN FPI for this, is that despite all those bad records on Texas A&M's schedule, because of the supposed strength of the SEC, and the conference did play extremely well outside the conference. Steve, guess what the strength of schedule is for Texas A&M with that kind of SEC schedule?
Probably 25th, something like that. And
I'm going to double check this. 18th in the country.
I was going to say, because I knew Sagarin had them at 17. Their strength of schedule is actually better than Miami's.
Yes.
Miami's strength of schedule was 31. And they were 4-0 against teams that were ranked in the AP on game day, but 3 of those teams are no longer ranked: South Florida, Florida State, and Pittsburgh. So, Florida State kind of fell off the map. Didn't they end up 4-8, I believe, something like
5-7.
5-7. Okay. Well, I watched the Miami-Florida State game yesterday, and I understand why. They gave up 3 long touchdowns to Miami. So Malachi Tony, he is the truth. So
absolutely.
If Ohio State has to play him, Matthews and IGB better be on top of their stuff. And of course, Texas A&M's got KC Concepcion, who's pretty good as well. So yeah, there'll be challenges regardless of which team lines up against Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl, no doubt.
One of the services that,
or rather, it's the Cotton Bowl. I'm getting them all confused in my head.
Yep. One of the services, Steve, that lists All-American teams just yesterday named KC Concepcion their first team all-purpose back.
Yeah,
so
AP. Yeah,
that's how good he is. He was a really good player at NC State, had a couple seasons there, transferred to Texas A&M. They line him up all over the place, hand him the football. He's had as many as 40 and 50 carries as a wide receiver from the slot position or out wide. So they line him up all over the place, try to create mismatches. I've seen Miami play quite a few times. I didn't see Texas A&M play as much as I typically would. Don't recall seeing much of the Notre Dame game, even though that would seem to be an obvious selection on a Saturday night. I did see them lose to Texas, saw most of that game, peeked in here and there against the likes of South Carolina, which they were down 30-3 in that game.
30-3 at halftime.
You're either unimpressed by them being down 30-3 against a 4-win team, or impressed that they came all the way back to win the game. One or the other.
One or the other. Either you discount the first half and you go by what you saw on with your 2 eyes in the second half, or you just say, man, they're just not a quality team, as I believe somebody put in the chat here, just kind of their shortcomings. They are not a good turnover team. Marcel Reed did throw a few picks here during that stretch run against South Carolina, maybe 3 in both games, South Carolina and Texas. And for the season, I believe this is a correct stat, they've only intercepted 3 passes all season. And then I jotted this down. They gave up big plays. I don't know that all these were touchdowns, of 80 and 50 yards against South Carolina, and then 54, 48, 35, and 30 against Arch Manning and Texas. So, Ohio State beat Texas 14-7. Texas beat Texas A&M 27-17. Of course, you can take all that, put it in a thimble, and, throw it over your right shoulder for what it will mean when these two teams show up to play. And it'll be in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl if Texas A&M wins. So I like the committee. They were asked point blank, why did you give Ohio State the Cotton Bowl and not the Orange Bowl, which Ohio State's played in the Cotton Bowl, I think, the last 2 years and has been there. This will be like the 5th time in the last 8 years, I believe, for Ohio State to be slotted in Dallas. And they said, well, we looked at it and we would rather the prospect of them having to play Texas A&M in the state of Texas at Arlington at AT&T Stadium, which is not Texas A&M's home field, against having to play possibly Miami at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida, which is about 30 miles north of the Miami campus. And as we all know, they only tend to draw about 25, 30, 40,000 people per game for the Miami games. I would think Ohio State fans would outnumber the Miami fans there 2-1. So it wouldn't be that great of a home field advantage, other than Miami would have the familiarity of I presume it's home. They would let them use their regular locker room, but just for logistics sake. But otherwise, it would not be, I don't think, all that favorable for Miami.
They apparently show up for the big events. So
yeah, they're
showing up for that one. Maybe
big game. Of course, they lost at home to Louisville. I mean,
yep.
They didn't play very good in that game. I mean, they were trailing the entire game. So, yeah, everybody looks down on Miami. My favorite comment over the years is that Miami hasn't been the same since January the 3rd of 2003. The greatest game ever played was on a Friday night in Tempe, Arizona, but I digress. Miami, as Ohio State fans like to say, Ohio State ended Miami that day. So that's one way to look at it.
Well, I'm already preparing myself because we do a Miami show on Wednesday nights. And if they win this game, well, first of all, this bunch of Miami fans, I'm not talking about everyone, of course. I'm talking about many of them are insufferable. And they've already determined that they're playing in the national championship game. Like this program has not won a meaningful football game in over 20 years. And they are playing a really good, flawed, talented Texas A&M team on the road Saturday. Let's take care of that one first. Win a meaningful game, people. I told them that a couple weeks ago. They didn't take too kindly to that. I said, why don't you win a meaningful football game first before you're counting up championships and deciding whether you want to play Georgia? Do we want to play Georgia? Do we want to play Ohio State? We do, before the playoffs were announced, they're determining, who they're going to knock off in the national championship game. It's like, whoa,
ease up.
Their resume is paper thin. I think they're a really good football team. I think they're a very talented team. Like I say, I've watched them play a lot, partially because I do a Miami show, and they're a very talented team. Carson Beck, as you just mentioned, a quarterback. He did throw 4 picks in the Louisville loss, so he can be had. But he obviously is a veteran who's been through big game situations. They're extremely talented. They're not the team that they were last year when they were all Cam Ward and offense and no defense. They really stocked up in the transfer portal, recruited well, developed defense, and have played defensively well for the most part. And despite they have the one big Notre Dame win, which if you watch the game, they were the much better team on that night. However, they made mistakes, led Notre Dame back in the game, needed to kick a walk-off field goal. So they beat them by the slimmest of margins, but that turned out to be obviously the playoff decider. And then after that, what's their second best win? They beat South Florida. They beat NC,
which I like that win at the time because South Florida had already beaten Boise and Florida at that point, and I thought South Florida could have been the group of 5 representative from the American potentially, and possibly even a top 20 or top 15 team. I mean, the way they started the season, and Miami just the nature of the game, it was 49-12 against a hot South Florida team. They cooled them off, no question about it. And Pittsburgh at the end of the year was playing for, potentially get in the ACC championship game, and they cooled them off 38-7. So the nature of those wins probably
Yep.
probably more impressive than the team that they beat. But
Yeah, the schedule is not impressive, but to your point, once they got through those 2 losses mid-season, they did bludgeon Syracuse, Stanford, the dregs of the ACC. They did do to them what you would expect, and the South Florida win is impressive by 37 points. So Miami's got a really talented football team. I posted a question, folks, on the front page of the YouTube channel right here. So check it out. You can leave your comments there in the chat as well. Who would you want the Buckeyes to play? Who do you want to see them line up against in the Cotton Bowl? Would it be Miami or Texas A&M? For whatever reason, just let us know. And
yeah, I'm doing a story on that too. So I'd like that data, of who, Ohio State fans, and it could be, who do you want to play? Who does Ohio State have the better shot at? You can look at it a lot of different angles, but just who do you did you word it? Who do you think they're going to play, or who would you rather that they play?
who do you want
Who do
Ohio
you
State
want?
to play?
Okay, that's a good way to put it because that takes in all angles. So
I think, well, all we have to do is go to Vegas. Obviously, they're telling us that these two teams are pretty even, but Texas
yeah,
A&M is a raucous crowd, home
it's the home
environment.
field advantage. 3 points is all
Yeah,
it
three and a
is.
half
So
points, but at 11 a.m. Central Time, I don't know. On one hand, I'm sure Texas A&M would want a night game, and people are probably wondering why is that a day game when you got the likes of James Madison and Oregon playing in prime time. I can say it in 3 letters:
well,
NFL.
yeah, ESPN took the games that were not up against NFL windows, obviously, and they left those last 2 games for TNT, True TV, and HBO Max to go up against the NFL. I don't think that worked out very well last year for True TV and TNT in those 2 slots. I think they got killed, and not that the matchups were all that compelling either. I don't think in those 2 spots, but the point I was going to make. What were we talking about just before that?
We were basically just sizing up Miami's schedule,
Miami.
them bludgeoning a number of bad teams in the ACC. Second best win was against South Florida, most likely.
Yeah.
NC State was 7-5 in the ACC. That's probably their second best ACC win off the top of my head.
Yeah, if I think of it, I'll come back to it. But yeah, that was I like Miami. I mean, I think they've got a good team. This is one of their better teams probably of the last 20 years. No question about it. And they got it to the finish line. I do believe they deserved the spot. They beat Notre Dame head to head. They have the same record. And it's not like Notre Dame went out and countered that with a win over a top 10 team. They don't have that on their resume. So is USC the best team that they played?
Absolutely, by
okay.
far.
See, that doesn't match up, so I think the committee, the poor committee, I mean, it just seems so wonky. One of the national people really took them to task. I forget which one it was. I don't know. All of them did, but just this idea the last few weeks that you were trying to tell me that these 2 teams with the same record were several spots apart. I mean, they were as many as 8 spots apart at one point in these stupid rankings. And here's Miami just ripping, people, down the stretch. Pittsburgh, say what you will, they were borderline top 25 all season. But Notre Dame should not have been ahead of them in the previous rankings. That was the problem. And so you could have slotted Notre Dame 1 spot below. And if James Madison doesn't steal a bid somehow, if I don't know how it all would have worked out, but Notre Dame could have, should have had a spot and didn't. So, what can we do?
To your point, Steve, I receive calls and comments all the time, and I understand people aren't in the weeds with this. They have jobs, and this is just entertainment to them. So they're not in the weeds with all this like we are every day. But I have to clarify to people that are blaming the committee for selecting James Madison and Tulane. The committee did not select them.
Their hands were tied.
No, those are auto bids based on conference championships. They select the other 7. So that's not a committee thing. That's a format issue that you have. And imagine, Steve, if Notre Dame was in this tournament, that they would be playing either Oregon or Ole Miss. Now, you talk about a really good football game. That would have been nice to see. Can you imagine Oregon and Notre Dame? I don't know if those 2 schools have ever played.
Yeah, that would be something. Last year, after the playoff, they did away with the idea that the top 4 champions would automatically get the top 4 seeds. What do you think will be a change to this system coming out of this year? I mean, quite frankly, they have extended the deadline with ESPN to decide whether this is going to go to 16 teams next year. And to me, it feels like the debate about Notre Dame is the capper that will make it a 16-team tournament going forward. So what do you think? Do you think there'll be some kind of changes to the format, maybe even beyond that?
I think they're eventually going to go to 16. I know Tony Petiti has talked crazy 24. I don't get that at all, except to make more money. But besides that, I just think that confuses the general public and the viewing public, and that does not draw people in to not knowing what's going on, and double buys and all sorts of crazy theatrics that the average fan is not going to be able to understand what's going on and why are they playing them. Yeah, 16 teams. The only thing I don't like about that is I do think that there should be a reward for an excellent regular season, and being the 6th seed and playing the 11 is that I think once we get around 6 or 7 in most years in college football, we've got a glut of teams that are very comparable. And besides playing at home, which is a nice advantage, no doubt.
Anybody from 6 to 6, anybody 16 down to 9 can, 16 down to 10 or 11 could probably win a first round game. I don't think 16 is going to beat 1, and I don't think 15 is going to beat 2, but I think it's open season probably after that. And the other news on that is if they go to 16, then teams 1 through 4 will also get a home game. So a place like Ohio State, you're going to have a December playoff game at home every year, or 4 years out of 5, or 3 years out of 5, I suppose, whatever. You're going to be hosting as a top 8 team a playoff game, and the conditions are going to be miserable. You know, we had a deal last Saturday. If there'd been one this past Saturday, we got dumped with 5 inches of snow here on Saturday. So, you know, that would not have been good. So, it's going to get a little wonky going forward. We can figure that unless they, change the schedule some way or the other and bump the playoff up. But even in the first weekend of December in Ohio, we used to go to the state championship games up in Canton every year for that. And I think Canton is the coldest place in the world, because every time I would go there for those playoff games, there was one time, everybody knows the name Kerry Combs. That poor guy was on the staff at Ohio State. He was coaching Coleraine High School, and there was snow flurries in the air, and he's out there in a white short sleeve Coleraine High School golf shirt, coaching the game in 30-degree weather in a short sleeve shirt. I mean, that's tough right there, bud. He didn't do that at Minnesota when they had that one game that it was real cold. He was weighed down with the parka that day. But that to me is the thing you run into is just, okay, do the conditions dictate the winner as much as the 2 teams? So
yeah,
I don't know. We don't have a perfect system with this, but I mean, they played NFL games this past week in 15, 20-degree weather. I mean, nobody wants to go to that. I guess these are playoff games, so they have some ramifications, but like Cincinnati was playing to, keep its season alive. The Bengals didn't even spend money to clear off the stadium. Now, in their defense, the snow came 24 hours before the game. It wasn't like it was there all week and they had 4 days to clean it off. I mean, they would have had to mobilize pretty quickly to get people to clean off the stadium. But those are the type of logistics that these colleges will have to deal with. If you want to charge somebody $200 to come to the playoff game, you got to have a place for them to sit down. So, are they prepared for that?
Yeah, I kind of wrestle back and forth with that, Steve, because they're supposed to be, real football players, and, the cold and the elements and all that are supposed to be part of the deal. But you do want to see the athletes be able to perform in the best of conditions so that the best team or the best team on that day wins the game. Now they both have to fight through the same elements. And again, much of the most memorable games in the history of the NFL were played in inclement weather. So I kind of wrestle back and forth with all of that.
I think they've put a proviso in there that if you want to move your game to a more suitable location, you can. And Cleveland is moving full speed ahead with this dome. I wouldn't rule out the case that, with the approval of the Browns or whoever, that, beginning next decade, whenever that thing comes online, that probably 4 or 5 years from now, that if weather is deemed so bad early in the week when Ohio State's supposed to host a playoff game, they could well move it to Cleveland. I mean, why not? If it's an indoor stadium, it's in the state of Ohio, and certainly Cleveland is a Ohio State bastion, no doubt. So, I wouldn't rule that out potentially down the line.
Yeah, there was a website. I wish I could credit them that right around the time that a 12-team playoff was announced, they did an in-depth dive into, they basically determined the 12-team playoff for like the last 20 plus years, determined what the games would be, where they would be played, on what dates, went back and looked up the weather data for those locations on that date to determine what it would have looked like. And, it was a lot of 40, 45-degree days.
Yeah, that's passable.
It's a lot of that business. Now, there were a few, like Florida State at Madison, Wisconsin against the Badgers, like, and, when they were good, a few of those where it would have just been brutal and a lot of snow, but it wasn't quite as much as you would think. It was a lot of, 40-ish kind of weather. And obviously there are teams in the South that are good that would host playoff games as well, where there should be no issue, although it does dive down into the teens in the South in late December.
Yeah, I agree with Troy's take. If we had a 64 team playoff, people would still complain about the 65th team. So it doesn't matter. You hear less complaining now that the NCAA is 68. You hear less and less complaining about the teams that get left out. Like this past year, Ohio State was like 35 in the net, but their record was not very good. 17-15. They were they beat Kentucky and Purdue, so they had some quality wins. And they were the highest ranked team in the net that didn't make the NCAA tournament. And they honestly didn't have a case to make it. So, it was pointless to say anything, it was like, you knew going into Selection Sunday, they weren't getting in. So, they lost their first Big Ten tournament game to Iowa. If they just win that game, and then it's the same scenario they had the year before. They had to play Illinois in the second round, needing to win that game to get in the tournament. Couldn't do it. And then same thing this year. If they'd beaten Iowa and maybe beaten Illinois in the second round, they would have maybe gotten in, but didn't materialize. So, and there was no complaining. So yeah, it was, maybe there were other schools that thought they should have been in, but I don't know.
Our buddy Jackson's here, and Jackson is basically an encyclopedia when it comes to facts and dates and that sort of thing. I'm a bit mystified. I got to admit, Jackson, at this comment about Miami will probably win because they tend to do well when the spotlight's on them. I don't really understand that perspective. I don't know that Miami's had much of a spotlight on it.
Yeah, I think their record against top 10 teams the last 20 years probably wouldn't be very good.
It would be horrible.
If I had to look it up. But
I posted a video a couple years ago. I looked at Miami's last 20 plus years. The last real strong season they had before, of course, last year was 2005. They were 9-3. They finished like 10th in the country. And then basically, if you take their last 20 years, it's a 7-5 season, just over and over and over. No top 10 finishes since 2004 or 5. So this will be the first team you would assume, unless they lose big, finish outside the AP top 10 in the final poll. They have not finished in the top 10 in the country in like 21 years.
I am looking for a Texas A&M cartoon. It was the guy who was the big Texas fan, and he would do all these MS Paint cartoons, and he had one on Texas A&M that was just spot on. And if I find it, I will send it to you, and you could put it up there just to lampoon Texas A&M a little bit. I got to find it. It's just too funny if I can find it. In the meantime, folks, so we remind you to please subscribe to the channel. So we deliver a ton of content here. We don't promote too much. So we're going to spend 30 seconds here to promote. Basically, just hit that like button. And of course, subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. Consider the Super Chat contribution. Steve shows up every week. Tony Gerdeman shows up just about every week. Of course, when I say just about, that means 99.9% of the time. And they take time out of their busy schedules to be here. If you have any leads on any sponsors, whether you own a business or you know someone who owns a business, and we have a track record of 15 or 20 sponsors here at the Voice of College Football down through the last several years, and everyone has always been pleased with our delivery. So folks, consider that. And again, Super Chats are available there to show your appreciation. And as soon as I said Tony's usually here like 99.9% of the time, voila! There's Big Tone.
100%.
100%. Yeah, sorry about that. Unforeseen circumstances took me away, and I'm happy to be here. And to Troy V's question, if we had a 64-team playoff, people would still complain about the 65th team. I don't care. I don't care about people complaining about the 17th team. I don't care about people complaining about the 25th team. The 12th, 13th thing, I think we can look at it this year and say Notre Dame is good enough to win a national championship, so they should have been in. So clearly 12 at this point isn't enough. But I don't care about the 17th team. I may not care about the 15th team if they decide to go to 14 to amend this kind of issue.
Well, I think there's two different things here. You're pointing out, and I think rightfully so, that now that we've gotten past 4, when we were at 4, I used to ask this question all the time. What can a team do to guarantee that they will make the playoff? And people would say, well, go undefeated, win the conference champ. No, nothing. You had 5 conferences and you had 4 spots. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, all 5 conference champions could have gone undefeated and somebody would have been left out. So there was nothing you could do to guarantee the playoff spot. So there was obviously a large limitation there. Now that we're at 12, generally you can't complain because just win your conference. You've got complete control over winning your conference and winning every game. Mm-hmm. Now, are there some teams, and obviously Notre Dame, Vandy has a claim, Texas has somewhat of a claim, and BYU has somewhat of a claim to a spot. So I do understand that. Yes, we could have 100 teams in, and you could always make a comparison of 101, 102, 103 and say, well, they're just as good as, of course, Yes. So that will never stop. And I'll even do that. But then I'll say reasonably, they had every opportunity not to go 8-4 and make a 2014 playoff or whatever, So
and somebody that goes 8-4 is not the same as somebody else's 8-4 as well. So there's room for nuance when you expand it. And you just mentioned 3 teams that have an argument to be in, and you expand it to 16, and I think just about everybody's happy except for the 2 teams that didn't get in that almost could have. But as you said, over the course of a season, you've got enough time to make that up. And Notre Dame loses too early and clearly did not have enough time over the course of the rest of the season to make it up. And I know I'm not here to complain for Notre Dame, but I think everybody, as I said, I think I said it last week, everybody in this tournament is happy that Notre Dame is not in it so that they don't have to worry about them.
I agree. Yeah, Notre Dame's a really good football team, no doubt about that. They can also blame themselves for agreeing to play 5 or 6 ACC teams in 2015 that weighed down the schedule instead of playing Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, which they played Purdue, and obviously Purdue's awful. But playing usually like another quality SEC opponent, for example, in their schedule. Notre Dame's schedules used to always be top 5 in the nation, like really difficult schedules. But in the last 10 years, they've been weighted down by Virginia Tech and Duke and Wake Forest.
Mark, I found the graphic on Texas A&M, and
Nice.
I forwarded it to you on the X chain there, the Twitter private message chain that we had. So
I'm with you.
you can I think it's safe enough for work, but you got to read the captions as the car goes slowly up the hill on the roller coaster. It's just, this is Texas A&M and really Miami, both of them to a T. This describes their last 30 years. If you see it and can mat it up.
It is interesting because, yeah.
Yeah, this guy, you got preseason, top 10, always top 10 preseason. Got the out of conference schedule. They negotiate that one way or the other. The quarterback is now mentioned for the Heisman Trophy. Johnny Manziel, whoever, Ward last year at Miami, et cetera, et cetera. The early Heisman talk. It doesn't matter who their quarterback is. He's in the Heisman race when they're 4-0. Then you have that early setback. The early setback, and it's setback in quotes because it's a loss, but it really wasn't a loss. We played great, etc. And then you get to October and the train goes off the tracks. I mean, that's A&M and Miami to a T for the last 30 years. Print every word of that and send it to College Station and Coral Gables or whatever they serve. Yeah.
No doubt. That
2 wannabe programs. Isn't it great?
yeah, one of them has to win.
We're going to clean up on one of them next week, Tone. Here we go.
We shall see.
They don't know what they're in for. They do not know what they're in for. So my presumption is going to be an angry Ohio State team coming off that stupid loss to Indiana. I thought it was interesting. Somebody ran a poll. Was it Feldman? I think put something out there about who the best coaches are in the playoff, and Ryan Day wasn't in the top 4 somehow. But I don't know. I think it was Smart, Signetti, and then a couple of the other ones. I don't know.
That
Smart,
seems extreme.
Yeah, I'm searching for. Obviously, Ole Miss has lost their coach. I don't think Dan Lanning's a genius. Dan Lanning at Oregon, top 4.
Yes,
you can't have him over Ryan Day.
No.
I think people look at the Indiana game as same as the Michigan game last year and said, "You've assembled this great team of talent. Why did you get in their way?" And I think both those losses to me are attributed to the coaching staff. And not putting the players in the right position. And that's just my take on it. I don't know what the hell that was they were trying to do in the red zone. I don't know. 2 games where your defense won you the game and your offensive coaching lost it.
I don't think enough people have watched Dan Lanning lose games at Oregon to understand that Dan Lanning is the reason some of those games are lost as well.
Yeah,
especially in his rivalry against Washington.
Yep.
Over the years. But yeah, I mean, when you look at some of the if you look at all of Ryan Day's losses, how many of them can you attribute to him? Because I think people throw the Michigan game,
the Michigan cheating. Yeah, the Michigan cheating. The Oregon one at home was defensive coaching, just complete total malpractice. So I don't know, a lot of them. Between coaching malpractice and Michigan cheating, that accounts for about all the losses. So,
because they definitely should have scored more than 10 against Indiana. I do somewhat ascribe to the theory of the bad field position last year against Michigan, but also you should still be able to score more than 10 points.
Yeah.
But also the offense gave Michigan 2 scoring drives, 10 points on a drive of 2 yards and a drive of 3 yards. So we don't need to relitigate that one. That streak is over. We can relitigate something else.
Time to start a new winning streak. The winning streak this year began with the 4 games in the playoffs. So if they can begin a new one with 3 games in this playoff, then everybody will have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Tony, we've posted on the community page, so everyone vote. Who do you want Ohio State to play? So, Tony, when you look at Miami and Texas A&M, Steve and I kicked around the schedules. We kicked around some personnel and some strength of schedules and that sort of thing. So, where do you stand on this one?
Well, I mean, there is a history between Texas A&M and Ohio State, but that kind of stopped in the 80s. There's a much more recent history against Miami that is interesting. I think Miami's defensive line is better than Texas A&M's. And when I went back and I recently watched Texas against Texas A&M and Miami against Pitt, so they're 2 most recent games, and I watched the Texas A&M game first, and I'm watching them, and I'm thinking I'm picking Miami in this game. I haven't seen Miami play this year, and I'm just watching the Texas A&M play, and I'm like, this seems like you're losing to Arch Manning, who is throwing the ball all over the place and not in a good way, and somehow you lost this game. So just watching that, I felt like Miami's probably going to win that one. I think it's a better situation for Ohio State to be playing Miami and Texas in Dallas rather than Texas A&M in Dallas. So I don't know how you want to frame it. I think Texas A&M I think Miami is probably the better team, but is Texas A&M the tougher situation in the Cotton Bowl than Miami? And I think Marcel Reed at quarterback, I think if you just can keep him contained, you're going to be okay. So there's that aspect of it. But both of those quarterbacks are capable of throwing three interceptions on any given Saturday. So I think either way, it's almost like what defense would be better for Ohio State to play, because I don't see either of these teams scoring more than 17. So whatever is the easiest defense for Ohio State to score 21 on. And when you see what Texas A&M has done this year, and they've given up some big games, I feel like Texas A&M is the better matchup, but it's in a tougher situation.
Yeah, just looking at the scoring defense, Texas A&M is 41st in the country, giving up 22 points a game. Miami is 6th in the country, giving up 14 points a game, and that is an improvement of 11 points. They gave up 25 points per game last year, so they have made some tremendous inroads defensively this past year. So, I mean, they're both good teams. They're both really good teams. I think this is what was a stat that stood out to me. Texas A&M is number 1 in the country with quarterback sacks at almost 3.5 per game. And if you watched Ohio State try and pass protect against Indiana, that's got to make you stay up late at night and wonder, what's going to happen.
Miami's got a terror coming off the edge in Reuben Bain.
Reuben
He's one of
Bain,
the
yeah.
best off
Tremendous.
the edge. And Akeem Messidor is a really good player. They're very strong up front. And also, consider that Miami, coming off of last season's debacle in which it was all offense, number one rated offense in the country, and horribly defensively. They fired their defensive coordinator, brought in Corey Heatherman from Minnesota. And so he has come up with some solutions as well as the transfer portal.
Well, and Texas A&M is number one in the nation on third down defense.
Yep.
Indiana's number two. The gap between 1 and 2 is the same as between 2 and 20 to let you know how good they are on third down. So that's something that is that's a tough situation for anybody. They've their last Texas was 4 of 13. Samford the week before 0 of 14. South Carolina was 4 of 15. They haven't had anybody better than 40% since Notre Dame. Notre Dame was 7 of 15 back in week 3, and that's pretty darn good. They went a 3-week stretch against Auburn, Mississippi State, and Florida. Yes, we know, terrible. 2 for 33 in third downs allowed. Certainly, Ohio State is better than that. If they can do 40 to 50%, I think you're okay. And again, Ohio State doesn't need to score a bunch of points, but I think one thing that Ryan Day could do to help his offense is be more aggressive, up that tempo a little bit, give your offense an extra possession or two, as opposed to the 9 or 10 that he's comfortable with now, because then he keeps talking about he last year was leave no doubt. This year he started to talk a little bit more about leave no doubt after that Indiana game. If you want to leave no doubt, push the pace a little bit more, because you've got a defense that can hold their own if they're forced to, if they're given forced to face 2 more possessions than they're used to. I think it'll be okay. And they've shown that they hold up against an interception, a quick change, where they don't necessarily give up touchdowns after you turn the ball over on your own side of the field. They hold opponents to field goals in those situations. So I think you've got the kind of defense that allows your offense to be more aggressive should you want to be.
The Texas A&M metrics are certainly kinder to the Aggies than the eyeball test, and just the common sense look at what they've accomplished against their schedule. They're number 5 in the country in strength of record. As I mentioned to Steve, despite playing the worst, aside from Texas in the SEC, the 7 worst teams, their strength of schedule is number 18. Now that shows the strength of the conference. That also shows that they went out and played Notre Dame on the road. But man, Texas A&M's SEC opponents are 18 and 46, meaning they lost to Texas, who went 6-2. So they went 12 and 44 against. Their winning games were against teams that went 12 and 44. And Miami obviously plays in a worse conference in the ACC. And so a 43% winning percentage for their opponents isn't necessarily anything to write home about, because they missed some of the best teams in the conference, like Clemson, Virginia, Duke. They did not play. Georgia Tech. So Miami had kind of a light touch as well.
I almost feel like nationally everybody needs to go to the same tiebreaker system, so that you can avoid some of the stuff that we've seen this year. And I don't know if that would change any of this, but you're looking at those, and boy, those are some terrible conference records. I don't know what Ohio State's is, but you look at that and you're like, who have the good teams they've played, they've lost to. So to expect anything different beyond this next round where somebody has to win, it's like, why would you?
And as Steve and I reviewed, they have 2 common opponents. They both played Notre Dame. Of course, Miami got the walk-off field goal. That was the most important game in college football, I guess, as it turned out this year, the most talked about. And then Texas A&M goes to South Bend and takes advantage of a botched PAT to win 41-40. So they both beat Notre Dame and obviously ended Notre Dame's season. They both played Florida. and disposed of the Gators pretty easily. So I don't know that these common opponents numbers that I compiled mean a heck of a whole lot, and they're pretty comparable, as you might imagine.
Two very
for
good
me,
teams, two evenly matched teams.
yeah. So this just comes down to the home field for me because they're both capable of making mistakes offensively, and it's impossible to predict who will do that. I guess maybe just go with the guy who's on the road as the guy who will make more mistakes. And so I'll choose Kyle Field over the field, I guess, here in this one, as opposed to choosing a team. I'll go with the stadium.
Tony, I'm not sure you were on here when I, basically took aim and obliterated both these programs, but I just wonder what their record against top 10 teams, both of these really in the last, let's just say in this century, since 2000, 2001, what is their record against top 10 teams? I would venture to say it's probably 5-20, something like that for both these teams. And they've been few and far between. And somebody gets to win a meaningful game on Saturday afternoon. So, and they're going to be talking all kinds of stuff coming off that field. And we're going to do this to Ohio State, and we're going to do that to Ohio State. And, we owe them, and, blah, 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 blah. So we'll see. We'll see.
I was watching the bowl game on Saturday. Just real quick about talking about winning percentage and that sort of thing. They showed a graphic where Boise State has the best winning percentage of all time in the FBS, and Ohio State's number 2. And the Buckeyes, with these recent seasons, they're starting to separate themselves a little bit. Alabama losing some football games the last 2 years, 7. So Boise State at 765, Ohio State 756. I went through, so I grabbed Boise State, went through since the BCS era 26-31 against Power 4 opponents. So obviously, if they played Power 4 opponents, it might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So Ohio State is the best winning percentage of all time.
I'm just quickly scanning the Miami last 40 years, and I've made it to 2011. And I believe they are 1-12 against top 10 opponents in that time, with the lone win being in 2017 against number 3 Notre Dame. Miami was number 9 that year, and they beat Notre Dame, or number 7 in this game. Notre Dame was number 3, and they won 41-8, and led 27-0 at the half. I assume it's something similar for Texas A&M.
I would say in this century as well, they have started at one position in the poll and ended many spots below that. Both these teams, probably 20 of the 25 years, if we had to just take a guess.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Now, that's stated for Notre Dame and Texas, and I would have to admit, for as much as I would like to pile on at times, I've researched that, and it's overblown in regards to their preseason hype. But for these two, I would think that is the case. Now, Tony, are those final rankings or at kickoff?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, these are final rankings that's how Phil Steele does it. And I'm just looking right now, and they had 2 top 10 wins last year against Missouri and LSU. Again, those, I think the SEC gets quite a bit of the benefit of the doubt in the rankings as well. Then 2022, they beat number 10 Arkansas. And they beat number 6 LSU. So they get the opportunity to play more, and they beat number 1 Alabama in 2021 when they were unranked.
Yeah,
and so they've just got more opportunity, but they've also done better. But again, they are, as Steve said, you can look at where they started and where they finished up in terms of the rankings. Like 2022, they were number 6 in week 1. They finished unranked. 2021, they were number 6 week 1. They finished around 14 or so. 2023, they started around 23 and they finished unranked. Last year, they started in number 20 and went up to number 10 before they were unranked. And I think, just looking, the last time they finished higher than they started was 2020, which was, of course, the COVID year. And 2018, they finished around 21st or so. That was what they were ranked in their bowl game when they started the season unranked. So you're hard pressed to find a bunch of seasons where they started low or started higher or lower than they finished.
Well, Miami, it would be difficult to find top 10 games that they play. What did you find? 12 in about 14 years? Because in the ACC,
Yeah.
if you're not named Clemson, you're not in the top 10 in the country in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like some of those were Notre Dame and they're not all ACC opponents as well. But in terms of the Miami fans, so we did on the Buckeye Weekly podcast, we did a rewatch of, like I said, Texas A&M, and talked about that and applied it to Ohio State. And then we did the same thing for Miami and Pitt. And the Miami fans, boy, they were in the mentions talking about we don't know anything, and you need to watch more games. Like, yeah, no duh. We said this is a one game window. This is one game's thoughts. And we're not going to watch a whole bunch of Miami games until we need to. Then if Miami wins, trust us, we'll go and watch more games. But this is a one. It's like taking a snapshot of a movie and reviewing that snapshot and be like, well, you got to watch the rest of the movie. Yeah, no crap. But this is just a one game thing.
We watched the trailer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I told Steve off the top, we do a Miami show on Wednesday nights. And if they win this game and there's a game against Ohio State, my goodness, that's going to be a fun one. And I'm going to have to lay some ground rules. And I'm basically going to say we can play this one of two ways. I don't want to see the entire chat piling on me going nuts about how you got ripped off 22 years ago or whatever the time frame is at this point. Or we can do that and we're taking off the Band-Aids and everything and taking off the gloves, and I'm going to let you have it. We can play it one way or the other, but just don't be surprised if you're like crawling up in a corner in the fetal position by the end of the hour if we go, full bore on this.
Yeah, I cited the Texas A&M cartoon earlier, and now my greatest Miami indicator was the pregame show before the Fiesta Bowl. Joey Galloway is on the set with his friend Herbie and Ronaldo Hill from Miami, and they're going around giving score predictions. They say, Ronaldo, what do you see? I see Miami 37, Ohio State 13. And Joey Galloway says, oh, Ronaldo, you're being a little bit harsh on my boys there. What you talking about, baby? I gave you 13. I gave you 13. That's their attitude. So
I remember Herb Street picking an Ohio State win. I still remember that.
Yeah, I've got the paper from the Miami Herald. It was me, Tim May, William C. Roden from the New York Times at that point. A guy named Shawan Dunston. That's not the right name. I know Shawan Dunston was the shortstop.
I was going to say.
Dunston, he was a cameraman for Cincinnati television. That'll tell you what this was like 25 years ago. The Cleveland and Cincinnati stations sent people to this game in Phoenix, and the guy got to know the guy from the Miami Herald who was doing it, sitting around the hospitality, and he just asked him, what's your score? I'm going to put you on my list. The cameraman from Cincinnati television got his name in the Miami Herald with his prediction, and of course he picked Ohio State. So there were like 5 of us on this list of 30 people who picked Ohio State. So I've still got that newspaper somewhere. What you talking about, baby? I gave you 13. Like it was charity. That it wasn't going to be a shutout.
I can't.
Boy, oh boy, it sure wasn't, was it?
I can't match that. I can only say that I was only about a month at ESPN at that point, and we had about 50 people in our department play a bowl predictions, and it came down to Miami, Ohio State, and I was in the running, and I was the only person that picked Ohio State, so I won the whole shebang. So that worked out.
We want to hit words real quick. I think
Sure.
Jeremiah Smith got highway robbered here with Mekhi Lemon. Nice player, but why is Jeremiah Smith 6th in the Heisman balloting or whatever he was, and Mekhi Lemon is nowhere to be found on that list. And who voted him as the number 1 wide receiver? I can't even conjure that. That's just, he got ripped off. At least he was. They have a number of guys who were. So Caleb Downs was a consensus All-American last year, and there'll be 3 more guys. So he's got his tree. 3 more guys who are getting trees, which are Jeremiah Smith, I assume Arvell Reese and Caden McDonald. Does that sound right, Tony?
Yeah. Also, Carson Hinsman was named AFCA
Yeah,
All-American, and then
that
today
was
Sonny was named
yeah.
Sporting News. So you'll have, I think, 7 total right
First
now.
guys who were first team, but they only
Mhm.
do the tree if you were a consensus All-American. Like out of the
Is that?
5,
I thought you just had
yeah.
to be named by one of them.
No, I think out of the 5 teams in a given year, if you're first team on 3 of those 5, you get your tree. So, which I think is a good standard. Do we really think Carson Hinsman should get a tree? Nice guy and everything. Sonny Styles deserves a tree for his contributions. God, what is he, a 4-year start? No, 3-year starter, I guess. He didn't start his
Mhm.
freshman year, did he? No, he didn't
No.
start. No. Oh, well. Hey, I got a question for you. Tegra Shabola. Does anybody know what his injury is? I'm assuming it's lower leg by his lack of mobility in the Indiana game, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't.
I don't know for sure.
I-
A lot of rumors that he had a
no.
procedure done and
Mhm.
may or may not be available for this game. So,
I was to
guess
the point where I wasn't expecting him to start in this game anyway.
yeah,
With more
how
options
bad it
back
went.
and
Yeah,
with Josh Padilla back fully and Gabe Van Sickle back, doing healthy and playing reasonably well, I figured they would just.
yeah. Gabe was in when they moved the ball in the 3rd and 4th quarter. It was about 2 series too late, though, that they finally pulled the plug on Tegra, fortunately. But and as
But
far as the Heisman, go ahead.
yeah, Tager is better against defensive lines that just come right at him rather than the lines that go horizontally or stunt and twist, and that's too much for him. So it almost just depends, like because he was fine against Michigan. Sometimes it
Yeah.
just depends on what the defensive line is doing. But when they know that that's the weak spot, then they can just continue to attack it.
As far as the Heisman, I was okay with Mendoza winning it. That was my pick on my ballot, number 1. I thought Sand should have been at least 3rd, if not 2nd. And Pavia is a great player. Yeah, so that was kind of how I viewed it. And
I think
Love, that's
one of the
fine,
reasons
whatever.
that Jeremiah lost, I think the Biletnikoff is because it's only a 12-week award. I don't believe the Big Ten championship game is factored in there, and so Lemon had better numbers than Jeremiah did, and
That
so
should be a
I
factor,
mean,
but it shouldn't be the overriding factor.
there's also
But
I
people
think a
don't
need.
take the time to look,
There's also a need for some voters to appear smarter than they are
Yes.
by like look who I'm voting for. It's it's like it's like me with the music that I like. It's not radio music, and I'm like, yeah, you like radio music, whatever. I like better music than that. I'm better than you because of that. It's sort of like this, where Mackay Lemon hasn't sold out like Jeremiah Smith is. He's still he's still still on an indie label, and he's still working his way up. And so that's why I voted for him, because
That's
I
funny.
know more. I know
That's
more.
funny.
Well, yeah, it's
You
assumed
should
that
see
if
my
you voted for
Spotify
Jeremiah
playlist.
Smith, that you didn't do any research. He's
Yeah.
the only guy you know, and obviously everyone knows he's the best. So you don't know anything because you voted for the obvious guy. So you don't know anything. Yeah.
But
I
everybody
don't
knows
really
he's the
have an
best
issue with that.
receiver.
Yeah. Again, I don't really have an issue with that as much as you guys or Steve does, but I totally get it. Jeremiah Smith is the best wide receiver in college football. Did he have the best season? Not necessarily.
I think my favorite Biletnikoff memory, and I assume this is a real memory, not just something that I've imagined and incorporated into my memories over the year, was 1995, ESPN showing the college football awards, and they announced the Biletnikoff, and the Biletnikoff goes to, and Keyshawn Johnson starts standing up, and then they go, Terry Glenn, and he has to sit back down. And I think that was the last time Marv won it, right? Marv won it one year.
Yeah, Marv won it.
He won it once,
junior
and
year.
then his junior. But didn't
David
the
Boston
Tennessee
never
wide
won it?
receiver won it, right?
David Boston.
Hyatt.
Nobody'd won it since Terry Glenn.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I think
Not
Marvin won
Boston.
it. It was Jalen Hyatt won it as Marv's sophomore year. And then I think they gave it to Marv as a junior, almost as a career achievement award as well.
Yeah.
Like
23.
Yeah.
Deserving.
So Jeremiah Smith gets his career achievement next year.
Next year. You can write him down in ink as the Biletnikoff Award winner next year. So
here, I know we're trying to get out of here. Here's a question for you guys. Who would you take from last year's team to put on this year's Ohio State team to guarantee a national title?
Oh, God. The offensive lineman, Donovan Jackson, might be an answer. Because you're good. You're good on defense. I don't know who you'd replace any of those people with. I mean, maybe somebody replace Lorenzo Styles, Denzel Burke, or somebody to replace Lorenzo Styles.
Jordan Hancock was perfect in the slot.
Jordan Hancock.
But wouldn't it be fun to watch Emeka Ibuka in this offense with Jeremiah and Carnell though?
I think about one of the two running backs, bringing one of those two guys back.
Yeah. Especially if you're going to tell me that Travion Henderson's going to play like he's played this year for the New England Patriots. And Quinshawn Judkins has been like, if Myles Garrett's the MVP of the team, he's, the best offensive player or one of their best offensive players. I don't know.
I mean, that's a low bar, but he's still playing well.
A very, very low bar. But.
All right, folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Of course, enjoy the playoff games this weekend. And in the meantime, get set for Ohio State versus somebody, Texas A&M and Miami. Check out Tony's work. What's going on with you this week, Tony?
Dropped some Buckeye Weekly podcast episodes, some listener questions. And one of those was the question I just asked you. And I think I'll probably write about that today as well, because I think there's some interesting answers. Even something like Josh Simmons at left tackle, moving Austin Sierreveld to right guard, where he has played before. But some interesting names there, and I should. Yes, yeah, or post surgery as he is now. No, not now.
Post surgery is better than the insert expletive that we've dealt with there against Indiana.
But you can find all of that on the internet.
Steve, what do you have going on this week?
I'm going to work on that Texas A&M Miami story just to kind of throw out there as a primer for Ohio State fans this is what you're looking for, and you'll come back a little bit more informed about these two teams. That's mostly it. It's been a quiet week. We don't have any interviews with any players or coaches this week, and we'll fire that up Monday or Tuesday, I presume, once we know what the matchup is going to be. For the next one is the Cotton Bowl. So, and really, I'm okay going back to Dallas. If you can guarantee me it's not going to be an ice storm like last year, that would be much better. So if it's in the 40s, we can live with it. But they have really built up the area around the Cotton Bowl. That Texas Live development just east of the stadium, about a half mile, is fabulous for fans going to the game. So, there's all kinds of things to see and do down there.
Buckeye fans, if you want to join us on the Miami show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time, believe me, they will be talking about Ohio State. They have assumed this victory on Saturday. They've been assuming it for weeks, obviously having no idea.
Giving them their dream shot.
They were 4-0 and
Top Gun.
They were 4-0 and picking out who they were going to play in the national championship game at that point. So
good God.
You can
if
come
they beat
have
Texas
some fun.
A&M,
I'm serious.
They're going to find themselves in with the varsity. So here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
All right, folks. We will see you next week.